I'm going to talk to you through these three calculations. So the first question asks you to calculate the return on capital employed. So this is basically what investors get back on what they put in. So the formula for the return on capital employed figure is the operating profit divided by the capital employed multiplied by 100. As we can see in the information opposite, the capital employed figure is not provided. So therefore, to work out the capital employed, you must add together the non-current liabilities and the total equity figure, which I will just shorten to TE. So these can be found opposite. Total equity 3150 and the non-current liabilities, which is 2774. So to get our answer, all we have to do is to put down the operating profit, which can be found in the bar chart below. It is asking for the financial year ending April 2017, so we use this column here, and the dark shaded area symbolises the operating profit. So therefore we do 691 divided by the non-current liabilities figure, which is 2774, added to the total equity figure of 3150, which is 5924, and we multiply it by 100. This will give us our final answer, which will be 11.6%. So this basically means for every pound invested, the return on top of this is 11.6% or 11.6p. Question number 2 asks us to work out the gearing ratio. This is an important ratio to understand in business, as it's referring to how much of a business's capital employed, so the money that's been invested into a business, comes from outside funding, such as bank loans. So the formula to work out gearing is the non-current liabilities of a business divided by the capital employed multiplied by 100. So again, in this example, we're using the same figures as previously and the same information, which can be found on this side, and the capital employed figure is not provided. So again, we will just add up the total equity and the non-current liabilities like we did for the first question. So the non-current liabilities figure is 2774 divided by the total equity and non-current liabilities figure added together, which we worked out previously was 5924, and we multiply this by 100 as gearing is expressed as a percentage. So the final answer is 46.8%. So this means that of all the money that's been invested into this business for growth, expansion, existence, of all the capital that's been invested, 46.8% of it comes from external sources of finance, such as bank loans. Because it's under 50%, we refer to this business as being low geared. The final question asks us to work out the current ratio, which is a liquidity ratio, and it's basically tells us whether a business can pay its short-term debts or not. So again, we use the information on the right hand side, and we'll just focus, because it's the current ratio, we'll just focus on the current assets and the current liabilities. So the formula for working this out is just the current assets divided by the current liabilities. So all we're doing is 1723 divided by 2368, and the answer must be expressed to 1. The 1 standing for every pound of current liabilities, how much do we have in current assets? So for this business, it's going to be 72 pence. So it basically tells us that because it's less because the current assets is less than 1, that this business only has 72 pence for every pound of current debt. So therefore, if they were required to pay their short-term debt immediately, they would be unable to do this. I would like you to use the explanations that I've given here for working out these calculations to help you complete the additional calculations that I've given you as part of your home learning. Okay, so this was the final question on your debt paper. It was an analyse question worth 12 marks. Analyse, therefore, requires you to build a chain of argument. It's not asking for your opinion, it only wants you to show knowledge of the question, 3 marks, application, so using the evidence provided, 3 marks, and then 6 marks for analysis where you develop your point using connectives such as therefore, this could result in, this could ultimately lead to. Okay, so the first issue with this question was lack of understanding of the key term constraint. A constraint is a limitation or a restriction faced by a business. So, before we start answering the question and writing, think about what is being asked of you. So this question wants you to use 2 financial ratios to analyse what restrictions or limitations this particular business might face in funding the new strategy that it wants to implement. So therefore, in the case study, there will be some information about the new strategy and how much it costs. This is going to be important in your answer, so you need to find this. So it clearly tells us in the case study that the new strategy is going to cost £50 million. So, you are responding to the possible limitations and restrictions that this business might face in raising this £50 million to fund the new strategy. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to consider is where might a business raise this £50 million from? So the easiest issue is the bank. Lots of businesses approach the bank for loans. Okay, so this is where my knowledge of financial ratios comes in. Because I'm going to calculate the gearing figure for this particular business. Because it's something that the bank manager might be interested in, as the gearing ratio figure tells us how much the business is already funded by loans. So, using the appendix provided, I'm just going to work on the 2016 figures because they're the most recent. So to work out the gearing ratio, I just need to do the non-current liabilities divided by the capital employed, so I just add up the total equity and the non-current liability, so I multiply it by 100. So if I do this, I will get an answer for 2016 of 64.6%. So it's above 50, so we know that this business is highly geared. So there's some knowledge, there's some evidence that we've used the information to do the calculation, which we don't do the calculation in our paragraph, we can do that on additional paper. We just include the answer 64.6 in our written response. Okay, so how is this a restriction, a constraint? Well, the business might be deemed risky by the bank. It's this concept of risk. They already owe a lot of money already. So therefore, if interest rates go up, this business's costs will go up. So therefore, lending this business money, especially as they have limited liability, as it clearly states in the question and the case study, that it's a PLC, might make the bank conscious of lending this business any more money. And this is how we expand on the answer of 64.6% to gain our analysis marks. Okay, so another option of where a business could raise £50 million from, other than the bank, is to use the profits that it makes and reinvest. These are known as retained profits. So, rather than just state what the operating profit figure is, which is clearly given to us here in table 2, I'm going to work out, because it does ask for 2 ratios, what the operating profit margin is. So this will show me how good this particular business is at turning revenue into profit. So to work it out, I'm just going to do the operating profit divided by the revenue multiplied by 100. And again, I'm going to do it for 2016 because this is the most recent. So when I do the calculation, I get an answer of 7.1%. Okay, so now to gain my analysis marks, I need to consider how this figure of 7.1% acts as a constraint or a limitation in funding the new strategy. So I would say that 7.1% is quite low. It means that for every pound that the customer spends, this particular business only gets to keep 7.1p of it. So therefore, you can argue and develop your point that the business might struggle to use retained profits simply because it's not turning revenue into as high enough profit as it would need for the new strategy. Okay, I've provided 2, which is what the question asked for, but there are other financial ratios that you could use. So remember, it's 50 million. So we've considered the bank, we've considered retained profits. What I'm now going to consider is using money that we can gain from investors, particularly those investing in the business in the form of shares. So I'm going to work out what we call the return on capital employed, because this will show us how attractive our business is to potential investors. It tells us what those investors will get back for every pound that they invest. So to work it out, I have to do my operating profit divided by the capital employed figure and multiply it by 100. So the operating profit is provided. Again, I'm going to focus on 2016, the most recent, and the capital employed. I'm just going to add up the total equity and the non-current liabilities figure. If I do this and then multiply it by 100, I will find that the return on capital employed figure for 2016 is 6.9%, which is a fall from 2015 where it was 9%, so it's like 2.1%. Okay, so now to develop the analysis marks. How do I do this? Well, this tells us that investors are only going to get 6.9p back for every pound that they've invested. So you might argue that this is quite low and it's not very attractive. What you could also consider is the concept of the fact that it's a PLC, share capital could be used. However, if we have a look at Appendix B, which shows us the share price for the last year or so, we can clearly see that in 2016 is a lot lower than it was in February 2015. So you could, for analysis, include the fact that the business could struggle to sell shares, or they're going to have to sell sufficiently more than the previous year in order to raise the 50 million. This is what you're required to do for this question. 2 paragraphs, in each one using a financial ratio, so there's your evidence, and expanded on this to gain analysis marks. So I would like you all to redo this question, please, in purple pen on the back of your DEP1 feedback by next week.